We see that a lot with radioactive waste issues. NIMBY is a strong factor there, and the reason for NIMBY being a strong factor is that people are drawn into the process too late and too little. And that makes people angry and upset, and they will fight. They will dig in and they will fight. Now, that's a situation we need to prevent with decommissioning, because we cannot let these palaces of nuclear dreams stand until eternity. A second point that we need to achieve is that we need to prevent that only the nuclear communities are included in decision procedures in order to speed up action. Also, that we have seen within nuclear waste issues. What we've seen is that it is very difficult to find a site for nuclear waste storage, be it low or be it high level waste. And in the end, the default option is to go back to where there are already nuclear power stations or other nuclear installations, because people there have an interest in those installations and they have the least resistance. Very often they're in favor. Now, that is something that is not helpful if you want to learn from the public, because you learn only from your own group. So that's the second thing that we need to prevent, is only the inclusion of nuclear communities. What I would like to say is, I think with the decommissioning, in the decisions that are upcoming, about form, about ways, about techniques, etc., quality should go over speed. And that is not always what we see today. I think, first of all, what we saw in the nuclear industry is that the nuclear industry wanted to act as if the problem wasn't there. So there was snail's speed of decisions. Then suddenly around the year 2000, we see a change. We couldn't avoid it anymore. The first projects are coming up, and now it is raffled through in enormous speed. I think that's not good. I think we need to be able to take the time to think over how we can deal with decommissioning the best way, but of course we should not shift it through next generations. Yes, we need to strike the right balance there. I think the way that, and I will come back to the case later again, the Netherlands dealt with the Dodewaard case, which was deferred decommissioning, was not the right way to go. That was too slow. That was one generation later that the work needs to be done. Good. Transparency. What transparency means in this case is that there needs to be a full, an early and an ongoing transparency about risks and about finances and about economic consequences. About risks, it's clear, I think. I mean, if we break it down, if we transport, if there is an attack on a transport, if there's an accident with a transport, it needs to be clear what needs to be done and what can be happening. Finances. There has been no transparency about finances. The fact that the European Commission needed to gather data from a lot of different sources, then weigh them, and then come with a rough estimate shows you that there is no transparency about the financial side here. None of the countries involved has been completely honest about what the costs will be. None of them has given full access, not even to the Commission, on these issues. That is not what it should be. Economic consequences. Also there we need to be fully transparent. If there is a problem with employment in the area of Ignalina, then we need to be able to talk about that. That we need to think together how we can develop that area in a way that the small Russian enclave in the town of Visaginas will not become 60% unemployed, 30% continue to work in decommissioning, and the social network of the town is unraveling. That is a question, again, of untransparency, intransparency, lack of transparency. And we will face that everywhere. That's why I say we need full and early transparency and ongoing transparency. Somebody said here we have a problem between early and late. I think it was you, Andreas. No, I don't see that problem. You have to start early and you have to continue. That's the only way to deal with it. What does that mean, involvement of the public in an early stage? Well, it first of all means that decommissioning should be included, including all its uncertainties, in the construction plans for nuclear power stations. And at the moment that is not happening. And I think that when we see with the construction ideas, plans for a new nuclear power station, that we cannot guarantee financial security for decommissioning and waste, that should be a game stopper. If we cannot guarantee the finances, we shouldn't even start with it. We are now facing the fact that we never did that before. And yes, we are facing a gap that in the numbers of the Commission is at the moment 123 billion euros for the Union, but we know already that that gap could be a lot larger if we get all the numbers on the table. Second place, early stages public involvement means the need for a nuclear phase-out plan. We need to have a plan that shows the people with a bit of clarity when which power station is going to go offline, when it gets into the decommissioning phase, and what that means for the risks and the reduction of risks. It needs also the acknowledgement of wider spread potential impact. So not only what can happen on the site, but also what can happen with transports, what can happen with which locations will be chosen for temporary or final repositories, what can happen if there is a malevolent attack during a transport or in a repository. And it also needs inclusion of that public which is beyond the borders of only the site, that could be affected by transport or malevolent attacks on temporary repositories, etc. What it also means is early participation in the project development, when we're not even starting with decommissioning. And it means a rigorous and independent assessment of costs and regular updates of that. What the accountancy court has done for the 3 countries with legacy projects from before '89, I mean, that should happen with every nuclear project in Europe. During those assessments, there needs to be public participation and there needs to be full transparency. I've mentioned already the importance of finding alternative and social and economic developments. I've added one more sentence which is not in there, but which will be in the final version that I will send Maria Elix later. And that is a sentence for the European Commission. At the moment that we take transparency seriously in decommissioning and also the other things. Under Euratom, the Commission needs to learn to adhere to the Aarhus Convention. Also, if it is Article 41 or 44. And the Commission refuses to do that. And it really is something that pisses me off, because it's the Ombudsman who sided on our side and came forward with the remark that because of Article 106A, the Aarhus Convention and the transparency rules in the Treaty for the Function of the European Union are also valid under Euratom. I don't understand why the Commission is blocking that. The only ones who are blocking it at the moment are those people who come forward with plans for nuclear activities, the countries that come with new build projects, the countries that will come with decommissioning plans, and the Commission, and nobody else. Everybody else says, yes, of course you should have access to that information in an early stage, so that you can help the Commission form its opinion and come with sensible ideas about that as public. I think there is a very easy solution to this unclarity, and that is that Euratom would step by to the Aarhus Convention. And it is the Commission that will need to take the initiative to that. Nobody else can do that. I challenge the Commission to take the step to propose to the Council that Euratom exceeds the Aarhus Convention. Good. Those were the issues of transparency. And I think I set those things very much with my Nuclear Transparency Watch hat on. The issues of content are more with my Greenpeace and WISE hat on. I think that on the content of decommissioning, it would be very good if the Commission would develop guidance to Member States how to address the financial gap that we've seen on the basis of the polluter pays principle. I just want to repeat that the 123 billion gap that we were talking about earlier is an underestimate. For Borselen in the Netherlands, for instance, the estimate for total decommissioning and waste costs is 500 million euros. And I think that that is a 700 million low. The second point on content, we need clarity for citizens about how long they will be exposed to the risk of nuclear power stations. Ideally, that should be based, of course, on a speedy phase-out. I think minimally that should be on the basis of the original lifetime, technical lifetime. What citizens have a right to is clarity about flaws, about risks, about safety culture, about emergency preparedness, all these things that are also changing over time. The third point. There is one thing that makes me angry sometimes, and that is the abuse I see of the ALARA principle. I want to emphasize once more that ALARA is only used anymore in the nuclear sector. The chemical sector has already moved long ago to the best available technology principle. But the abuse I see is of economic arguments, complexity arguments, and organizational arguments. And that is also true for decommissioning. And I will give you a few examples. At the moment we see, and it's a pity that Gerasimov Thomas is not anymore there, he talked several times about we will be able to make up money from the gap that we face in long-term operation. That's not how it functions, Mr. Thomas. How it functions is that we are going towards the end of lifetime, and that then there is still a gap, and that gap is used as an argument for long-term operation, even in spite of clear failures in safety culture, in safety, technical safety, warnings on technical safety. I only have to mention Tihange 1, Doel 1 and 2, Santa Maria de Garoña. There is more that I could mention here. But in all these cases, Borselen, for instance, the argument for long-term operation is not need. It's not safety. Safety arguments are overturned. It's because we face this gap in decommissioning and waste funds that should never happen, full stop. We knew that this was coming. We knew that we were saving too little money. The build-up of decommissioning funds should have been on the basis of risk. And you know when the risk starts? When the fuel is loaded, then the money should be there so that we would never face the dilemma of can we afford to close this thing down? Of course that will not happen. In worst case scenario, I would say, okay, then it should have been on the basis of the technical lifetime of the reactor. We plan a reactor for 40 years, then the money for decommissioning has to be there within 40 years and not later. Any delay is culpable behavior of operators and involved authorities. Good. Another issue that plays a role with ALARA and the abuse of it is the question of deference or direct decommissioning. Why is that important? Well, if I look at the Dodewaard case in the Netherlands, there was a decision for deference. The reason was economic. again, a lack of decommissioning funds. They said, okay, we'll wait 45 years before we take the thing down. It will be a lot easier then, a lot cheaper. What happened in the meantime is everybody forgot about Dodewaard. There is a staff of about 6 or 7 people working there nowadays to oversee things. That's guarding things. It's not very many people. The money is still not there. There is still a gap. We still can't decommission it. And the state still will have to step in. The owner is an envelope firm that doesn't have any real ownership anymore. Those are people that for 30 years ago were an owner of something that produced value. Yeah? But now they've retired and it's basically an envelope firm. That should never happen. I don't think that you're allowed to use ALARA for deference. Discounting, another issue where ALARA is coming under pressure. The discounting is used as an argument for long-term operation. It's also used before that we need time to build up those funds. I think that we should do that on a discount rate of 0%, to play safe, to be able to guarantee the money when it's needed. At the moment we're gambling. We're gambling on how the economy will develop. And that is a 2-week gamble, as we have seen in the last few years, to get sufficient sources for decommissioning and waste. The issue of decommissioning is urgent. And it's a problem. It's an urgent problem. It is urgent at this moment for Santa Maria de Garoña. It is urgent for Almaraz. It's urgent for Doel 1 and 2, Tihange 1, Mülheim, Besnau, Borselo, Oskarshamn, Ringhals, Lovisa, all Kilowatt 1, 2, Ignalina, Bohunice A1 and A1. Anybody remembers Bohunice A1, the one that crashed, that melted down twice? It's still in decommissioning phase. And that is 50 years ago that it melted. Kozloduy 1 to 4, Hinkley Point A and B, Heisem. Yes. Those are urgent. Those are power stations that are going to be switched off soon, and we haven't prepared sufficiently for decommissioning. But also the heads up for the French fleet. 21 reactors are over 35 years old. The UK fleet, the first VVR 440s, 213s are going to go out soon in Slovakia, Hungary and the Czech Republic. And I don't want to let Germany off the hook. It's a pity they're not there. But the current compromise needs more transparency and more public participation. Yes, for the side of the public, decommissioning is as much a problem as nuclear waste is, as new build is, and as long-term operation is, as emergency response and preparedness is. It's one of the issues that Nuclear Transparency Watch definitely will continue to work upon in the coming decade. Thank you very much.